Okay, so I beat God of War Ragnarok 3 days ago. I let it sit for a little bit. Now I'm here to talk about it. Right off the bat, it is a really good game. I think it's better than its predecessor in basically every aspect. That being said, I don't think it's perfect, but we'll get into that later. I'm gonna break it down into like categories just to make it simple, but this isn't a scripted video. This is more of my raw thoughts after playing the game. So I'm going to start with the story. The story is by far the best part about this game. If you're someone who plays video games and you're like, oh my god, there's a long cutscene, don't play this game. The dialogue, the voice acting, it's all like it's almost more than top notch. I mean, I don't think it'd be a stretch to say this is some of the best like writing, dialogue, voice acting in a game to date. It's all almost perfect. I mean, it's comparable to stuff like Red Dead 2, The Last of Us 2, but the stuff that they're doing with the facial animations, I don't know, it's all really good. But I know that there's a bunch, well, maybe not a bunch, but I see a lot more criticisms of this game and these types of games of like, oh, there's too many cutscenes. You're supposed to play the video game, not watch a cutscene. But I think it being a sequel to 2018 was like that too. Like, I don't know why everyone's surprised that the game makes you sit through a cutscene when in the first 10 minutes of the first game, you were lugging a tree around. Like, I don't think you swung your axe in the first game until maybe 15-20 minutes into the game. But then people boot up the sequel and are like, well, why are there cutscenes? It's a little annoying. But all that said, the writing, the dialogue, the cutscenes, I want to talk about the set pieces. The set pieces in this game are incredible. I don't even know how to like describe it. It's just visual eye candy. It's just cool. It's epic. It's almost like taking a quick time event but making it super cinematic, but it's also like one of the best quick time events I've ever seen. I don't know, like, I mean, compared to the first game, definitely way better. I'd say the scale of the game in general is just way bigger. The first game had a very contained, like low key scale to it. Like, you weren't fighting any of the real big Norse gods. It was all like little like side gods, and now you're fighting Thor, you're fighting Odin, you're fighting Heimdall. These are all like the main people that are in Ragnarok. So the entire scale of the game is just way bigger. But if you like the story in the first one, you like narrative driven games like The Last of Us, this is something that's on par with those games, if not maybe even better than some of them. I think Christopher Judge as Kratos is possibly one of my favorite performances in a video game ever. He might have boosted Kratos into maybe one of my favorite video game characters of all time. The depth of seeing this character go from someone who was in the original trilogy to 2018 to this game, it all feels very well done. It's just really good. I don't want to talk about the story too much. Everyone knows that's like the best part about the game. So let's move on to the gameplay. Right off the bat, is the game different from the first one? Does it do anything to stand up from the first one? Yes and no. I think there are a few core changes to the gameplay that make it faster paced and better. One of the biggest things for me is the way the parry works. In the first game, the parry was very stop and go. You would hit, parry, and then if you hit again, you would do like a knockback attack, and then you would reset your combo. And most of the time, the enemy would also go flying back. So it was very stop and go. Now the way the parry works is you hit, parry, and then you hit again. And instead of doing that knockback move, you just keep your place in the combo, and then the enemy just gets stunned for a little bit. It works way better, and that little change makes the gameplay feel faster paced. It just flows better. And on top of that, the shields themselves, they're all different. I used the dauntless one, so that was the parry one. So that attack that used to just be built in, now you tap it twice and you do that like shield bash move, and you can power it up the more you block and parry. So also there being different shields in general for the different playstyles, I think is pretty nice. You know, that's not something I would have expected or even asked for, but there's a bunch of different shields for a bunch of different playstyles, so it's all right. It's nice. So that's one thing. Also, starting out with the chains, or the blades of chaos, whatever you want to call them, starting out with those and not having them be something you gain through the middle of the game allows them to let you use the chains in other things besides just combat. So you use them in puzzles, you use them to get around the environments, and that makes the game, again, feel a bit more versatile. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but you know, Kratos being able to swing from a bunch of shit, go up ledges quickly, and it being used in more puzzles, it makes the game feel a bit more expanded in that sense, right? It's not like crazy, it's not like the biggest thing ever, but it is something that makes the game feel like an actual sequel, right? Like it is more complex in that way. Another huge thing is the enemy design and the bosses. They took the criticism of the enemy design not being the best to heart, and basically every single realm you go to has its own set of enemies, but on top of that there's a bunch of them, and on top of the enemies there's mini bosses, there's kind of not bosses, but like higher tier bosses, higher than mini tier bosses. There's a replacement for the Valkyries, so there's a lot of enemy variety. That being said, not every enemy is fun to fight. There's these little tiny like kind of like rat looking things that are annoying to fight. You'll fight a lot of wisps, which are annoying because you can't hit them. You gotta hit them with an arrow and then knock them back. There's this like wraith type enemy that you can't use runic arrows on, and it fucking flies away all the time, and it's really annoying. So even though there is a great amount of enemy variety, maybe triple what there was in the first game, I wouldn't say every enemy is S tier A plus enemy design. That was a little problem I had with the first game too. Like, on top of every enemy being just an ice guy or a hell guy, it was also just guy with the sword, guy with the mace, long range guy, and then half of them self-destructed for some reason, right? It just felt like really lazy enemy design, but they really did drastically improve upon that in this game. And on top of that, the biggest thing for me is the boss battles. That is something that was sorely missed from the original trilogy to 2018. Also, on top of the scale, the bosses were all, like, in 2018, the bosses were all very, I mean, you could almost say that there weren't bosses. You fought a lot of trolls, a lot of the soul eaters, and you fought Baldur at the beginning of the game, you fought Baldur at the end of the game, and there was Modi and Magni. So there was, you could say, 3 real boss fights and then a lot of trolls. Like that is a real criticism you could put on 2018. In this game, every single boss battle is an actual great cinematic, bombastic boss battle. I don't think it's as good as the third one. If you ask me, God of War 3 might have like the best boss fights in gaming. I mean, like, that might sound crazy, but from start to finish, the boss fights in that game are fantastic. You know, you go from fighting Poseidon to Hades to fucking Hercules, you know, in every single fight, Kronos, and on top of you fighting big names, they're all very well done. They're all cinematic. They got the cool quick time events. That is something that is in Ragnarok. The boss fights are very, very cool, and there's more of them, and that's all I can really say without spoiling it. You know, like, I'm not gonna say who you fight. Everyone knows about Thor at the beginning of the game, and you're obviously gonna fight him more than once. But on top of that, there are plenty of boss fights that are on that level of like, cutscenes, cinematics, voice acting, dialogue, scale, like it's all, again, on top of the enemy design, the bosses are very, very good in this game. And there's a lot of memorable ones, is I guess what I'll say. Another thing, the side quests in this game. The side quests in 2018 were good as well, but I think in this game, they do a better job of really containing and kind of focusing in on the best ones and then kind of removing a lot of the fluff. There is still fluff in this game, but a lot of it feels more interconnected to the characters that you're going to be traveling with. There's more dialogue, like there's less of a sense of you're just kind of doing it to get the platinum trophy, and a lot of it is you're getting story, you're getting character development. Some of the side quests are straight up on par with the main quest. You'll do things that you could argue like they could have put in the main story. Again, I'm not gonna spoil it, but you get real character development in these side quests. And I mean, even calling these side quests almost feels disrespectful, because on top of the dialogue, the character development, the actual story that you're getting during these side quests, it's rewarding, because while you're doing it, you're getting your better gear, you're getting health upgrades, you're finding runic attacks, you're finding this, you're finding that, right? You're also powering up. Yeah, like the side quests in this game also really, really, really good. And speaking of gear, the gear system, is something in 2018 that it was okay. Like it was a little unbalanced, because it kind of felt meaningless and pointless until mid to late game, to where if you were doing side content, then towards the end you could actually get a solid build that would actually feel like, okay, I got these enchantments with this pommel, with this, chest. You're right. Like it wasn't until the later half of that game where you could actually build an actual build. In this game, they do a great job of making it so that each gear set has, I guess, its own ability, like set of abilities, right? So you'll find a gear set, even early on in the game, you'll find gear sets like if you dodge at the last second, you'll get a realm shift, which is basically like it slows down time. There's poison build gear. I ran one. One of my favorite moves was the immolation and like power up moves, to where if you could hit them enough without getting hit, you hold L and triangle and you power up your moves. There was a gear set to where you could increase the rate of when that would power up, right? There's the final one I used was increased damage after I parry, right? So there's a lot of gear sets, and because it's less on the stats and more of what do they do for you, you can really mix and match the different wrist guards, chest plates, and you can level up each armor set to the max level. And they do a great job of kind of spacing out which materials you need for what armor set, so that it never feels like you're wasting materials if you're actually going out and doing the side quests, right? The gear system, it's still something to where, like, if you don't care about it, it is very easy to just forget about it and feel like you're getting a lot of nothing. But again, I think it's another aspect of the game that's just been improved. Balancing is also better. In the first game, I played on the very highest difficulty. In this game, I was scared. I'm not gonna lie, because in the first game, I have nightmares about the early hours of that game, because it is so unbalanced between how quickly you die and how long it takes for you to kill the enemies, especially in the first 3 to 4 hours of that game before you can really go out and do side quests and kind of power yourself up. You will get shit on no matter what. I don't care how good you are at video games. The first few hours of God of War 2018 on the highest difficulty are fucking ridiculous. In this game, I was scared of that, so I didn't start out on the highest difficulty. I started out on hard mode. And from what I've heard and from what I've played, it is balanced better. Especially because the way the gear is, you're just kind of stronger in general. On top of like being on top of starting out with the blades too, you're just kind of, you yourself are just kind of stronger, right? The different moves, the powering up the blades, powering up the axe, the triangle moves. Since you're just kind of stronger, on top of them balancing it better, it is a better experience. Speaking of balance, the arrows. So your companions, some of them can use arrows. In the first game, these were broken because you could upgrade the recovery speed, but you could also upgrade the amount of arrows you could shoot. And one of the types was an electrifying arrow that would basically stun the whole map. And because late game, these arrows fill up super quick, a very viable strategy was just running around the map, mashing the arrows, using runic attacks, running around the map, throwing your axe a little bit, and just really keeping away. In this game, arrows are still good later on down the road, but they're less broken. And there's no like area wide, like the whole map is getting electrocuted arrow no more. So because of that, the arrows are more balanced. So to stop gushing about the combat, the story, one criticism, or I'd say the main criticisms I have about the game in general, are the camera is still not ideal for this kind of action game, right? Having to dodge enemy attacks that are behind you, not by being able to see and react to them, but having to react to the little fucking red triangle or Mimir going, "Oh lad, behind you," you know, like the audio cues. That's not that, like that's never gonna feel the best. Again, I don't know how they would even change that because of, you know, they're focusing on the more narrative one camera behind the back thing. So I don't even know how they would fix that. But again, for an action game, it's still not ideal. Okay, mine, I guess major spoilers, but like not really because this is kind of expected. But again, spoilers, if you don't want to hear about this, I don't know, maybe I'll put a timestamp on the fucking screen, you can skip it. There is another weapon in the game, and that's fine and all. It's a cool weapon. I'm not gonna show it on the screen. Like I'm not just gonna, like, unless the gameplay I'm using just has it on the screen, I'm not gonna show it. But this leads into a problem I had with the first game, to where there's no attack that lets you switch between weapons mid combo without just straight up switching the weapons with the D-pad, right? It's a little awkward having you're hitting them with the axe. I want to use the blades. I gotta hit left on the D-pad to use the blades, right? Again, it works, but this is something in the third game. There were weapon switching attacks. You held L1 and X and you switched between all your weapons, and that, you know, lets you keep the flow of the combo going while switching your weapon. That's something I kind of really hope they added into this game. Just because it's very easy to fall into just using your favorite weapons, just using your one weapon, especially when you're strong and you're at the end of the game and the enemies die like at like a normal pace, you know. It's very easy to just say, well, I'm gonna use the axe because I like the axe a lot. I'm gonna use the blades because I like the blades a lot. I'm gonna use the new weapon because I like this one a lot. And even though I do like switching mid combos, and I do like switching between this weapon and that weapon, and switching between the range and using the different runic attacks, because there's no weapon switching attack or just easier way to switch weapons mid combo, it's very easy to just fall into using one weapon and that's it. You're just using one weapon. You could say that's a fault of the player partially, like, oh, I mean, if you get bored using the axe, use the blades. If you get bored using the blades, use the other weapon. But on top of there not being a weapon switching attack, there are enemies in the game that they have like this bar that you gotta whittle down before you get to their actual health, and you gotta use the specific weapon for that. But straight up, out of like all the encounters in the game, maybe like 10% of them, maybe even less than that, have an enemy that you have to do that for, and it's usually one enemy. It's not like multiple enemies. Again, it will be sometimes, but like this scenario to where you have to switch to a specific weapon to whittle down someone's specific health bar doesn't happen a lot. So with that combined with what I said earlier, again, it's easy to just I'm using the chains, I'm using the axe, and then that's it, and then you're not gonna use the rest of the moveset. And the final thing, I wish this was exclusive to the PlayStation 5. I don't know. Call me what you want. Call me an elitist. I don't know. I really don't give a fuck. This game should not have come out on the PlayStation 4. I get it. The first one did. It's hard to get PS5s. I don't know. It just makes sense. It makes sense from a business standpoint. It makes sense. But at the same time, even though this game does look better than 2018, it is very beautiful. I think the environments, because you're going to the different realms, are the standout. It's just looking around at the world. But on top of that, the effects are better. But that being said, it's not next generation, right? It's not fucking like, I don't think it's The Last of Us 1 to The Last of Us 2, right? I don't even know if that's fair, but it's not super next gen. And you can tell, on top of it being that way graphically, you can tell even with the game design, there's still a lot of sections to where we're climbing up the fucking rock, and maybe it's so that they can load the area or whatever they're doing in the background. You know, we're still doing the press circle to slowly go through this area because they gotta load the other area. You know, there's even a few times I was moving through the world quickly and a lot of the textures just loaded in after the fact, even though this is supposed to be the PS5 with the super duper custom SSD, right? You can tell that this is a cross-gen game. Again, in the grand scheme of things, the game is still one of the best looking games on the PS5, one of the best looking games I've probably played in recent years. So even though it is a criticism, I wish it was exclusive to the PS5. It's still a fucking gorgeous game, right? It runs at 60 frames, 4K. I think I'm gonna wrap it up. I think I said basically everything I need to say. If you played 2018, you need to play this game. Even if you don't have a PS5, I would still buy it on the PS4 just to play this game. I think it is worth it. That being said, I want to bring I talked about it a little bit earlier. If you're someone that doesn't like story games, or you never played 2018, or like the idea of having to watch a cutscene for more than 4 minutes bothers you, this game isn't gonna change your mind. You know, it still isn't trying to be a character action game. It isn't gonna be, you know, you're hitting them, you jump up in the air, hit them with an air combo, dodge back, you get the 100 hit combo, you know, like it's still not that game. So if you're looking for that experience, you still gotta go play the original trilogy. I hate that I even have to say this, but it seems like more and more people nowadays cry about, I gotta watch a cutscene, right? It's stupid. You know, there are like legitimate pacing issues. I didn't really talk about it, but like you could make the argument that yeah, the game does slow down at some points, and you do get locked into like sections of the game to where it's like, damn, I wish we can move on, right? I wish I didn't have to be doing this right now. There is, you know, we're on top of this monster and we're talking and there's just dialogue and there's nothing happening. Like that is in the game, and you could make the argument that it could be paced better. But it's still great. Like, even though you could criticize it and you could say this could be better, I think a lot of or some I mean they're talking about like shit I see on TikTok, right? But it doesn't seem like people criticize the quality of the pacing and how it you know could be better, how the story could be better. It just seems like people are upset that there is a cutscene that's 3 minutes. They're just upset that you have to go on the back of the monster and like talk to the guy. Like it's not the fact that it could be better, it's the fact that it's there, period, that is the problem for some people. And I think if you're one of those people, this game isn't going to change your mind, right? It is a sequel in every sense of the word. But that being said, I do think it does basically everything 2018 did better. Yeah, I think that's everything I needed to say. Is this game gonna be game of the year? Is it gonna be Elden Ring for game of the year? I don't think so. Just because Elden Ring, I think, is more of a... Elden Ring was more of a game changer. You know, Elden Ring was more of a moment in time, and this is more of a known quantity. You know, I don't think anyone was surprised when the reviews for God of War Ragnarok came out, and it was a 10 out of 10 across the board. But with Elden Ring, there was a little like, you know, can they do it? Can they pull it off? And on top of that, it breached into a wider audience that I've never seen before. You know, people that weren't playing Souls games ever were playing Elden Ring and enjoying it. God of War doesn't have anything like that. So I think Elden Ring is going to win Game of the Year, and I think Elden Ring should win Game of the Year. But that being said, God of War, if you ask me, it's still a 9.5 out of 10, right? It's still a great game. It's still a must play. It is, you know, the big blockbuster Game of the Year that everyone was anticipating, and I think it delivered on all fronts. So if you watched the video, thanks for watching. That's going to be the end, and yeah, thanks again for watching.